Okay, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because I'm about to tell you about a serial killer who operated 3 years before Jack the Ripper. He attacked sleeping women in their beds with an axe. He dragged their bodies into the yard. He struck again and again in the same city for an entire year. And you've almost certainly never heard of him. His victims were mostly young black women, domestic servants, women who woke up before dawn to cook and clean for other people's families. And the city of Austin, Texas, a city that was building itself into something modern, something beautiful, just let it happen. 400 men were arrested. 0 were convicted. The killer was never identified. And then he just stopped. Or maybe he didn't stop. Maybe he moved. I'm Dark Verdict, and today we're talking about the Servant Girl Annihilator, arguably America's first serial killer, and one of the most overlooked true crime cases in history. Let's get into it. To understand this story, you need to picture Austin in 1884. This is not the Austin you know today. No live music scene, no tech companies, no breakfast tacos at every corner. This is a frontier town on the edge of becoming something. Population around 14,500 people, dirt roads, gas lamps, an enormous Capitol building under construction right in the middle of downtown. And like a lot of American cities in the 1880s, Austin had a very clear social hierarchy. And at the very bottom of it were black women who worked as domestic servants. They cooked, they cleaned, they raised other people's children. They lived in small outbuildings behind their employers' homes. Little shacks in the backyard, basically. Isolated, unprotected, with no one watching out for them. That's who the Annihilator hunted. The first murder happened on the night of December the 30th, 1884. Her name was Molly Smith. She was 25 years old. She worked as a cook. She was sleeping in her room, a small building behind her employer's house on West 6th Street, when someone came through the door. She was struck in the head with an axe while she slept, then dragged outside into the snow, then mutilated. The wounds covered her entire body, head, abdomen, chest, arms, legs. So much blood that witnesses said she appeared to be floating in it. Her boyfriend was also attacked that night. He survived barely. Nobody was charged. And that was just the beginning. For about 5 months after Molly Smith's murder, the city was quiet, scared but quiet. Then on May 7th, 1885, it happened again. Eliza Shelley, also a cook, also attacked with an axe while she slept. The wound to her head was so severe that, according to reporters at the scene, her skull was nearly split in two. 2 weeks later, May the 23rd, Irene Cross, stabbed repeatedly with a knife. A reporter from the Austin Daily Statesman who saw her body wrote that the wounds to her head made it look like she'd been scalped. 3 victims, 3 months. Same pattern every time. Attack in bed, drag outside, leave the body, and the city of Austin was starting to panic. Now here's where it gets important, because this tells you everything about how this case was handled. Powerful city officials at the time publicly refused to believe one person was doing this. They said it couldn't be a single killer. They said it must be different people, different motives, different crimes. Why? Because that would mean there was a serial killer loose in their city, and that was bad for business. Austin was trying to grow. Investors were watching. Newspapers from New York were already writing about the murders, so officials downplayed it. And the killer kept going. August 30th, 1885. Rebecca Ramey was attacked and survived. Her daughter, Mary, 11 years old, was not so lucky. An 11-year-old girl, beaten, raped, murdered. That killing changed everything. The community was no longer just scared. They were furious. Vigilance committees formed. Citizens started patrolling the streets at night. The city hired more police officers. Rewards were posted. And for a moment, it seemed like it might work. Then came September 28th. Gracie Vance and her partner, Orange Washington, were both attacked. Gracie's face was, according to one account, pulverized with a rock. Orange died from his wounds. Two other women who were present that night were also injured but survived. 6 victims in less than a year, all the murders except one targeting Black residents of Austin, and not a single arrest that stuck. And then came Christmas Eve, 1885, December 24th. The Annihilator struck twice, in 2 different locations, on the same night. The first victim was Susan Hancock, described by one reporter as one of the most refined ladies in Austin. She was attacked in her backyard while her husband slept inside. Her head was cleaved open with an axe. And then, something the killer had never done before, something sharp and thin was driven through her ear directly into her brain. Less than an hour later, a mile away, Eula Phillips, 17 years old. One reporter wrote that her face, turned upward in the moonlight, held an expression of agony that death itself had not erased. Her arms had been pinned down with timber. Her husband, Jimmy, was also attacked and severely wounded, but survived. Now, here's where this story takes a sharp turn, because Susan and Eula were white women, and suddenly, the entire city of Austin moved differently. The same murders that had been happening to Black women for a year, with officials dragging their feet, questioning whether it was even the same killer, now generated immediate, furious action. Both husbands were immediately arrested and charged. Moses Hancock, Susan's husband, was charged with killing his wife. His trial ended in a hung jury. He went free. Jimmy Phillips, Eula's husband, was actually convicted. Sentenced to 7 years, but within 6 months the conviction was overturned. Insufficient evidence. And then, just like that, the murders stopped. No more attacks, no more victims. The Servant Girl Annihilator disappeared as suddenly as he had appeared. So, 400 men arrested over the course of 1885. 400, and not one conviction, not one person who could be definitively linked to the murders. Let's talk about why, because this is actually fascinating, and it tells you a lot about how criminal investigation worked, or didn't work, in 1885. First, there was no forensic science, no DNA, no fingerprints, no psychological profiling. The concept of a serial killer didn't even exist as a term yet. That phrase wasn't coined until the 1970s. Detectives in 1885 didn't have a framework for understanding what this was. Second, eyewitness accounts were completely contradictory. One witness said the killer was a white man. Another said he was dark-complexioned. Another said he was wearing a dress. Another mentioned a slouch hat and a white rag over his face. Some witnesses claimed there was an accomplice. Others said it was a gang. And third, and I think this is the most uncomfortable part, The city simply did not invest the same energy into protecting its black residents as it did its white ones. The pattern of the murders was obvious from the second killing. Same weapon, same method, same type of victim. But officials refused to connect the dots publicly until white women were killed on Christmas Eve. Now, here's something genuinely eerie. The African American community in Austin at the time had their own theory about who the killer was. They believed he was a white man, and they believed the reason the dogs never barked. There were dogs in nearly every yard near every murder site, and not one of them raised an alarm. Was that this man had some kind of supernatural ability to move unseen. Obviously, we don't believe that now, but the detail about the dogs is real, and it's strange. The killer was somehow moving through these neighborhoods at night, entering buildings, attacking people, dragging bodies outside, and not a single dog barked. So that takes either extraordinary luck or extraordinary knowledge of the area. So who did it? There are two main suspects that investigators and researchers have focused on. Suspect number one, Nathan Elgin. In 2014, the PBS show History Detectives dedicated an episode to this case. Using modern geographic profiling and psychological analysis, they identified a suspect, Nathan Elgin, a 19-year-old black cook who worked in Austin at the time. The evidence against him is circumstantial, but it's compelling. Footprints were found at several crime scenes. The killer appeared to remove his boots for quick, quiet entry and exit. One distinctive print, missing a toe on the right foot, was found at multiple scenes. Nathan Elgin had only 4 toes on his right foot. He was also, according to FBI profiler Mark Safarik, exactly the type of person the psychological profile pointed to. Young, muscular, acting alone, someone who felt powerless in daily life and targeted people he saw as accessible. Someone intimately familiar with Austin's backstreet, yards, and buildings. Nathan Elgin died in early 1886, shot by a police officer during an unrelated incident. He died from his wounds the next day, and the murders immediately ceased. Suspect number 2, Maurice. This is where things get genuinely wild. Maurice, no last name recorded in history, was a Malaysian cook who worked at the Pearl House, a downtown Austin establishment that had connections to several of the Annihilator's victims. At roughly the same time the Austin murders stopped, Maurice left. He went to New Orleans, and then he moved to London. The Austin murders ended in December 1885. The Jack the Ripper murders began in London in September 1888, 3 years apart. Same general method, attacking women at night, mutilating bodies, disappearing without a trace. Same total bafflement from law enforcement, same unsolved case. Now, I want to be clear, this is not a proven connection. Most serious researchers don't believe the Ripper and the Annihilator were the same person. The Ripper's crimes were more targeted, the wounds more precise, the geographic area much smaller. But London authorities did question several American men, including at least one Texas cowboy, in connection with the Ripper murders, and the theory has never been fully ruled out. Look, I want to take a second before we wrap up. Because this story isn't just about a mystery, it's about who gets to be a victim. 8 people were killed, 6 of them women, one of them an 11-year-old child, most of them black workers who had almost no power, no protection, and no one in authority who was willing to fight for them. The case became famous as a crime against the city of Austin, against the idea of Austin, a threat to its reputation, its growth, its future. But Molly Smith, Eliza Shelley, Irene Cross, Mary Ramey, Gracie Vance Hay were the ones who died, in their beds, in the middle of the night, in the city where they lived and worked. And the name we remember isn't theirs. It's a nickname coined by a writer named O. Henry that doesn't even mention them as human beings: the Servant Girl Annihilator. The case is still officially unsolved. The murders are over 140 years old. We will almost certainly never know who did this, but we can at least say their names: Molly Smith, Eliza Shelley, Irene Cross, Rebecca Ramey, Mary Ramey, Gracie Vance, Orange Washington, Susan Hancock, Eula Phillips. That's the story of America's first serial killer, forgotten for a century, never solved, and buried almost under a history that didn't think it was worth remembering. If you want to go deeper on this case, Skip Hollandsworth's book, The Midnight Assassin, is the definitive account. It's a New York Times bestseller and genuinely one of the best true crime books I've read. If you made it this far, thank you. Subscribe if you're new, drop a comment with what you think happened, and I'll see you in the next one.